833 people is raped in South Africa, which is far above the global average of 1 in 10,000. And 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. But some national violence studies show that up to 70% of women have experienced physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. The South African government has adopted a zero-tolerance approach to crimes against women and children. President Jacob Zuma said during the launch of the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children that the number of perpetrators serving life sentences for such crimes has increased dramatically since 2010. He says a total of 1,832 perpetrators are now serving life sentences. Well, WaterHouse is from the Community Law Centre at the University of the Western Cape, and she joins us now from our Seapoint studios in Cape Town. Good afternoon, Sam, and thank you for your time on the PM News Desk.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Sam, are we facing a pandemic in various forms, or is this being alarmist right now?
I definitely don't think it's being alarmist. I think that for way too long we haven't taken this seriously enough. We haven't looked at the kind of impact this has on individual lives, but also on society. I mean, if we're looking at statistics, the numbers that you've quoted, and you think about if in 1 year 60-odd thousand women report to the police, and we consider that conservatively only 1 in every 10 reports, we're talking about 600,000 women in 1 year. Now, if you start taking those numbers up in the last 5 years, you're talking about 3 million women in the last 5 years who have experienced some form of violence in this country. So no, I don't think it's being alarmist.
Rape survivors often say their lack of support stems from quite a range of flaws within the justice system. Can you take us through some of these, please?
Yeah, look, I mean, there are a number of flaws in the system. I think the most obvious and the highest impact is coming from the kinds of attitudes and behaviors of police, health workers, prosecutors and magistrates towards survivors or victims of sexual violence or other forms of gender violence. So firstly, I think we need to look at the fact that so many police, for example, are still frighteningly rude to women. I had a case the other day where a police had said to a woman who had no DNA evidence on her, well, you need to go back to the site so he can rape you again so that we can get some evidence. So that sort of behavior, the blaming of victims, well, why were you there in that pub? Why were you drinking at the shebeen? Those things are profoundly problematic. And the fact that people tasked in the system to deal with it, to respond in terms of the law, who don't do it, and they get away with impunity, is a major issue. Then it's the things we know about, the poor quality investigations, the loss of dockets, the ruining of DNA evidence, the lack of interest by prosecutors. So we can go into a lot of very technical detail which shows us over and over again, we're seeing that the problems lie with the quality of the work being done in the criminal justice system, as well as with these attitudes that aren't being addressed in management or through state programs.
Sam, there is a perception out there, and of course a great deal of frustration, understandably, about the way the justice system is now set up. Victims feeling it gives the accused more rights and greater representation in court than the victim of the crime herself. A justified perception at this point, or not, Sam?
Well, look, it's justified, but we live in a country with a history where we had a criminal justice system where people could be put in prison without a fair trial. So I think we do, as South Africans, understand that you need a robust system that is going to protect people from being wrongly accused and from being wrongly found guilty. At the same time, the way that the system is operating is giving people that feeling like this is all about the accused and not about the victim. And it's actually wrong, because our constitution holds very strong rights for victims. You have the right as a South African to dignity, to privacy, to be free from harm. So there are rights that are in place. They are then solidified in a number of laws around violence against women. But we're not seeing that those rights or those principles of law are being used in the case or through the process of investigation. And that's where the problem lies, is that we actually do have enough on which to stand, but we're not seeing any investment by the state to ensure that the police and, as I said, the health workers, the prosecutors, actually adhere to those standards. So you talked about zero tolerance, and I feel very sickened because there is an enormous amount of tolerance within the state to people working for the state going completely out of line. So the zero tolerance at this stage is coming across to me as political speak. We don't tolerate rapists, we don't tolerate people who kill babies, but we're not seeing that coming through when a woman stands in a police station and reports an event. So I personally think that there should be some program, and it actually wouldn't be that expensive, to improve local management, because we can see so clearly that when you've got a police station or a court or a hospital that is managed by someone who believes in these values, who understands the law, all the people working under them actually are forced to work to those standards. So it's about accountability, management and standards, and I think that's one of the huge areas in which we're failing at the moment.
Thank you for your time on the PM News Desk, Sam. That was Sam WaterHouse from the Community Law Centre at the University of the Western Cape.